Welcome to Conspiracy Playtime Podcast.
Some people actually believe that the world is run by shape-shifting alien reptiles.
No fucking way.
I think just the whole podcast is rated R.
Will there be titty?
What the fuck is a conspiracy theory?
When two separate events occur simultaneously pertaining to the same object of inquiry, we must always pay strict attention.
The only Jewish conspiracy there is that I'm circumcised.
And there's this guy from the CIA and he's creeping around Laurel Canyon.
So anyone at any given time could be infected, don't even know it, and feel perfectly well. That's really the nature of science.
Come on, man. That's like saying you, before you got in this program, you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not. What do you think, huh?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
We need to get the fuck out of here!
Fixing that testing regime, we need to have that in place before we move to that next phase.
I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
I strongly believe that.
I do as well.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
The FBI killed Martin Luther King.
It's fucking making sense to me now.
How many vaccines have you had? Have you been a good little Nazi? Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci!
If our own government was responsible for the deaths of almost 100,000 people, do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Roll up your sleeves, take your shot, wear your mask, and please stay safe out there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conspiracy Playtime Podcast, where we play with ideas that might get you and me canceled and discuss topics that might feel a little uncomfortable. And in today's episode, we are discussing MockingBirdMedia. And Colby is taking the helm on this one, and I am just going to be along for the ride and trying to figure out what the hell's going on with this Mockingbird.
Mock! Yeah! Ing! Yeah! Bird! Yeah! 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 Mockingbird! Don't everybody have you heard?
As an intro to Operation Mockingbird, we're going to look into something called the Church Committee. And it was formerly the United States Senate Select Committee to study governmental operations with respect to intelligence activities. In 1975, they investigated abuses by the CIA, NSA, FBI, and the IRS. Chaired by...
And the IRS.
IRS as well.
Wow.
It was chaired by Idaho Senator Frank Church. He was a Democrat. And the committee was a part of a series of investigations into intelligence abuses.
This committee was formed to try to kind of put a lockdown, kind of put a stop to this infiltration.
We want to be sure that this country stays free. And that means that any spy agency continues to be outward looking, to spy on foreigners, but not to be spying on Americans or not to be trampling upon the laws and constitutional rights of American citizens. That would be its purpose, and in the long run it would contribute to public confidence in the CIA and make for an efficient intelligence agency operating within the law.
They dubbed this the Year of Intelligence. people who know me, and you certainly know this about me, I have a little bit of an obsession with the deep state and intelligence agencies, the CIA in particular. It's just something that fascinates me to no end. And this being 1975 when they started looking into these things, we're going to be talking about events such as the co-opting of the hippie movement in Laurel Canyon in the late 60s. And it's a hole that I just dove down recently. Anyway, I'm not sure. And also the Charles Manson killings, and it kind of is all in that whole scene. So this investigation, this committee would have been, 6-7 years after all that stuff was going on.
Could we give a 2-sentence synopsis of Charles Manson's, just for people who, because this was not taught in history class?
It was a gruesome string of murders, most notably the Tate La Bianca murders, 2 separate scenes where this deranged hippie cult led by a man named Charles Manson, who had spent his entire life in and out of correctional facilities, and there has been things uncovered.
Today's video, I wanted to discuss the book Chaos by Tom O'Neill. Manson could have been part of a CIA mind control program where they were experimenting with LSD to see how they can change people's minds. They could get people to kill on command and not remember it. And there's a lot of information in here about how Manson was around various CIA people during MK Ultra. Another thing was that Manson was potentially part of an FBI program. FBI was trying to infiltrate the hippies and the Black Power movement and trying to undermine them by putting their own agents, and potentially having Manson do violent things could have been part of this program.
After reading that, I definitely got obsessed with CIA again, especially in that area of Los Angeles, the Laurel Canyon scene, which is where these Manson murders happened. Also where the music generation, the 60s generation of getting fucked up and
acid and
it was all about free love and psychedelia, and the Vietnam War was going on during this period, but a lot of these guys in that area were not focused on it at all. Anyway, this is an episode we're going to get into. I'll get back to this investigation. So the most shocking revelations that came out during the church committee investigations were MK Ultra.
Okay, which is mind control.
Yes, definitely an episode or 7 in there that we're going to get to. COINTELPRO. Do you know what that was?
I do not.
It was where the FBI, I believe the CIA may have been involved to a degree, but this was mainly an FBI operation where they would, and they're doing it to this day with, these guys that tried to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh, okay.
Last summer, federal and state agents arrested over a dozen men accused of participating in a criminal conspiracy to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Several of the men participating in the plot were wired informants. The DOJ viewed the case as an example of how various law enforcement entities could work together to stop violent extremists, while others see it as simply a setup.
Wow, imagine that from the FBI. Informants acting under the direction of the FBI played a far larger role than previously reported. Working in secret, they did more than just passively observe. They had a hand in nearly every aspect of the alleged plot, starting with its inception. The extent of their involvement raises questions as to whether there would have been a conspiracy without them.
It seems very similar. COINTELPRO was back in the late 60s. Organizations and groups such as the Black Panther Party, the Weather Underground, these guys were making some serious headway against the United States government and kind of trying to form a revolution. They were infiltrated and made to do bad things that got them in trouble. Could have been stuff like that. It was just all sorts of ways to disband these organizations that were making some serious progress.
Right.
All right. The big reveal. William Colby. No relation. He was the CIA director.
And third, that any missteps by CIA were few and far between, have been corrected, and in no way justify the outcry which has been raised against CIA.
Are you absolutely sure that you and CIA have now taken the steps to assure that the mistakes of the past are not now being repeated and will not be repeated in the future?
I believe we have, Mr. Chairman. I've given very strict instructions. I exert a very clear command structure, and with respect to that, I think all of our employees are very sensitive to this problem in these days, and I am convinced that the directions are clearly within the proper charter of CIA, and that the activities are also within the proper charter of CIA today.
He kind of just dubbed it as skeletons in the closet of the organization, and they didn't even really release a lot. In fact, it wasn't until 2007 that the Non-Governmental National Security Archive filed a FOIA request, and they refiled that in 15 years previous to the release of them in 2007. So no speedy cooperation on the part of the CIA, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, well, of course not. I mean, they want to... I mean, it's like all forms of government, right? To make it as difficult as possible. So
yeah, are you willing to jump through hoop after hoop after hoop and do this and fill out the right paperwork? I mean, these guys must have been pretty relentless with it because it took them 15 years.
If the IRS was involved in there, they know how to play shenanigans.
And so I've mentioned these MK Ultra and COINTELPRO, and then the third one that kind of was revealed and brought to the public's attention for the first time is the topic we are talking about today, Operation Mockingbird. And it's, to sum it up, it's a systematic propaganda campaign with domestic and foreign journalists operating as CIA assets and dozens of U.S. news organizations providing cover for CIA covert activity. Wikipedia claims that this foreshadows the revelations of Edward Snowden, but you know how I feel about him, and we'll do an episode. I think that guy was totally a psyop. Anyway, just a little Wikipedia insert. Gotta have those.
Wikipedia?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one.
I made it up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm sure I'm not the only one that calls it that, and if I am, spread the love.
Yeah, I mean, Wikipedia is one of those things where you think it's a resource where anybody can go in and edit and,
Is
improve
it not that?
Well, you can, but there are certain topics where you go in and add your source and your information, and then within minutes or hours, it's changed again. So there are people that are constantly on this.
Isn't there a documentary about that?
Probably, I don't know.
To be clear, the CIA, even though revelations came out that we all call this Operation Mockingbird, they themselves have never formally admitted to that this was going on. The only thing that they do acknowledge is it's called Project Mockingbird, and that's probably where the pundits or the people, the scholars and historians looking into this dubbed the term Operation Mockingbird because it spun off of this. Project Mockingbird was a wiretapping operation initiated by the State Department when JFK was president.
Oh, really?
And it was where they were wiretapping these reporters, I believe in Washington, D.C., because there was leaks. There was intelligence leaks that were getting into the fucking newspapers back when they were actually doing their job. So the precursor to Operation Mockingbird is this thing where they admitted we didn't like the flow of information coming out of the United States media outlets. So to stop that, we
kept a pulse on everything.
Yeah, we had to tap these reporters and find out who was doing it. And I mean, what do they do when they find out who was leaking?
Right. And that kind of reminds me of something I heard where JFK would actually, to get messages out, so the CIA wouldn't hear, is he would give reporters or different people like slips of paper with messages and say, hey, I know you're going to this place, deliver this message for me. And they would fold it up in their newspaper and take it for him. And that was how he was able to kind of do things without the CIA knowing, because clearly he knew that they were wiretapping everything that was going on. So he was able to kind of use old school technology.
So this makes sense because it's the thing he's doing right there is what the CIA started doing and is doing to this day. It's kind of funny that JFK actually used the media in that way to benefit, to get his narrative out there.
Yeah.
So we all think of JFK as this benevolent president, and there's some shady shit going on in his first few years, especially with first few years. I guess he got killed in 3, so before all the drama with the
Cuban Missile Crisis, and I think he's all right.
Fuck, it just needs to go. I'm gonna get rid of him. Yeah. So the Cuban Missile Crisis and just the whole flare up with Russia kind of takes a lot of focus off of what was going on in those first couple of years. And I want to tell you something, man. Robert Kennedy,
his father.
No, his brother, who was...
Oh, okay, that's right.
He got assassinated in 1968 in a hotel, walking kind of from the lobby to the kitchen. And I don't know what kind of president he would have been. He had a huge movement. It was almost reminiscent of what Bernie Sanders would later do.
And this is Robert Kennedy we're talking about.
Robert Kennedy, yes. He, right after LBJ announced that he wouldn't be running for president again, RFK jumped onto the scene and he started this real progressive movement. And of course, the steam that was behind it was a little terrifying. So, he had to have his fucking head blown off, much like his brother. But anyway, in the early days, RFK was a relentless motherfucker. As the attorney general, he went after...
he was the attorney general?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which is, we talk about nepotism these days. Everybody freaked the fuck out when Trump starts putting his...
people.
Yeah. And
quote, unquote,
I don't think it should happen, but it's nothing new.
Right. No, this is politics.
Yes. So he went after unions. He went after the mob. He did some things that were good in that position of attorney general. He also did some weird shit, and this was one of them. He was basically the go-between setting up these wiretaps between the CIA and the White House. So that's pretty much all you're going to get as an admission, but we're going to look into it because fucking throughout the years, it just gets more obvious and more obvious.
Well, yeah, it seems like it would be hard to hide this.
Well, we're going to get to this near the end of the episode, but they don't even try to hide it anymore. They're basically in your face almost with it.
Right,
and
they're mocking us. Yeah. Kind of weird, right?
You gematria motherfucker. All right. We're going to go to a quote from a man who served many years as language interpreter.
My name's Fred Burks, and I guess I'm probably best known as a whistleblower. I worked with the United States Department of State for 18 years as a language interpreter and moved up the ranks and ended up even interpreting in the White House for President Bill Clinton and President George W. Bush.
Having participated in secret meetings where the only people allowed were the principals and their interfere, he was given an inside look. And for some reason, he's outspoken for Operation Mockingbird being a real thing and being against it. And this is his quote. Operation Mockingbird was a CIA program that made a mockery of free press in the U.S. The existence of this program, which spread CIA propaganda through the media, was flatly denied until it was uncovered in Senate hearings. We talked about that in the mid-'70s. The CIA's claims that it shut the program down in 1976 are undoubtedly a further deception. They simply shifted the operation to other parts of the agency as they had been caught red-handed. Before the U.S. Senate Church Committee revelations, the media and CIA colluded overtly in their media propaganda campaigns. As the public was quite incensed with these revelations, afterwards the collusion became covert and much more sophisticated. Nowadays, media executives or journalists are very careful to keep their CIA connections secret, yet there is plenty of evidence the techniques developed and used under Operation Mockingbird continue to be commonplace. He ended up retiring at some point, and I think he was kind of fearful. He had spoken out, but it looks like he was just kind of out of the picture by the time Obama got into office. That would have been the time, because we're always talking about how Julian Assange is being held captive right now for being the only true journalist that really is walking around right now. I mean, there's
and nobody ever
exceptions.
talks about Julian Assange. They're always talking about Snowden.
Right, and that's exactly right. And then why I kind of think he is a psyop. I mean, this guy is walking around Skyping with Joe Rogan with fucking Russian sunshine behind him while Assange is like fucking getting wheeled out like Hannibal Lecter in a bulletproof case. They're starving him. They're torturing him. His lawyer does say that he's on the verge of death right now. A little side tangent, but anyway, the Obama administration jailed and prosecuted more journalists than any other administration.
They were terrible.
Yes.
Even though they said that they wanted to protect whistleblowers, and they did the exact opposite of that.
Fun fact, everybody thinks Trump coined fake news. That was an Obama term.
Oh.
I mean...
But Trump just said it louder.
Trump
repeated it.
stole it. He trolled it. His gift to do such
Yeah.
a thing, and then he owned it.
Yeah.
But this was something that Obama, he would, and he's right.
I kind of remember that a little bit, where Obama would say some stuff about that.
I do believe he was mainly referring to like alternative media on the internet,
Yeah.
where Trump was more talking about
Before alternative facts came out, really.
Yes, exactly.
A BuzzFeed analysis found that fake election news generated more buzz on Facebook than stories from 19 mainstream news outlets combined. Fake news is such big news, President Obama weighed in Thursday.
There's so much active misinformation, and it's packaged very well, and it looks the same when you see it on a Facebook page or you turn on your television.
We'll get back to the guy with the badass name, William Colby. Here's a quote from him. And I was right. It was late 73 to early 76 that he was the director. So from William Colby, CIA will undertake no activity. And this is, I believe, in rebuttal to the
accusation.
The pushback against what was going on. And this was his promise, I suppose we could say. The CIA will undertake no activity in which there is a risk of influencing domestic public opinion, either directly or indirectly. The agency will continue its prohibition against the placement of material in the American media. In certain instances, usually where the initiative is on the part of the media, the CIA will occasionally provide factual, non-attributable briefings to various elements of the media, but only in cases where we are sure that the senior editorial staff is aware of the source of the information provided. So, we're going to interfere and not interfere.
Right.
Following a report by U.S. Congress in 1976, the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers and periodicals, scores of press services and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial publishers, and other foreign media outlets. George H.W. Bush, he during his early years.
This is Papa
Bush.
Yeah.
Prescott Bush's boy. So.
And he was president, 2002?
No, he was president from 88 to 92. He
Okay.
was between Reagan and Clinton. He only had the one term.
Okay.
So in 1975, he had a high up position in the CIA. And
let's just take a second here and just bask in the thought that somebody who was a CIA director became the fucking president. Does that not seem like a conflict of interest? That's almost as bad as somebody who's in Congress who then gets a job at Shell Oil Company or something like that.
That never happens.
No, never. It's just that never gets brought up. That's just ludicrous.
Yep.
So what about JW?
So although he publicly ended the CIA relations with the U.S. media.
Yeah. Oh, so JW was the one who...
Well, he's the one who kind of said, we're putting an end to it. He's kind of claiming the CIA is still actively involved with foreign news organizations, which in turn feed the United States media with information. But he established that...
Whoa, wait. You kind of just brushed over that point here.
Okay.
So you're saying that JW specifically said that they still have ties with foreign media but they say that they're not doing domestic media.
That's what they're saying, but they kind of funnel it through foreign media. It gets better. Just wait till we get to the Voice of America network. Okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So if you think that's crazy, he goes on to say, the CIA will not enter into any paid or contractual relationships with any full-time or part-time news correspondent accredited by any United States news service, newspaper, periodical, radio, or television news network. But this is where it gets dicey. Colby, to get back to William Colby, stated that he did not see any harm in purchasing information from part-time correspondents who sell their information to news organizations. So we're talking about like stringers and just little independent journalists.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just finding ways to like say that they're not putting their fucking hand in there, but then they
they're only part-time. It's okay.
Yeah.
They're only part-time.
We're going to get a little bit forward from the 70s and move into the early 80s. On December 4th, 1981, President Ronald Reagan promulgated Executive Order 12333. You can do what you want with those numbers. I know you're fucking already it's spinning in there. Establishing United States intelligence guidelines. Restrictions on the Central Intelligence Agency were instituted in the 70s in response to the Church Committee, as we talked about earlier. So the executive order Reagan puts into play reflects the determination to unleash America's intelligence community from those limitations that they had just barely been given. The order allows the CIA to direct domestic counterintelligence, foreign intelligence, covert ops, and law enforcement activity against United States citizens. So there was
law enforcement activity?
Yes. So there was maybe a brief heyday when the public was aware these things were going on. There was a little bit of backlash, which in turn had this church committee as a result of. And then in 81, Reagan's like,
full control.
We're back. And he just gets into fucking Reagan, he's one of those guys that it's almost like Obama and Trump in a way, where he has his fucking followers that just revere him and almost claim that maybe he's one of the better presidents we've ever had. And then there's people like me who hate all of them, but him in particular. He was a Democrat and a liberal in Hollywood, and his wife basically strong-armed him into becoming a Republican to take the fucking California governorship and then move into the White House. I mean, the best source of this is the fucking episode that Drunk History did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, to me, and my father's a history teacher, and I kind of snoozed through history in high school. Only in my 20s did I become more interested in it because of stuff like this.
Right.
But
the stuff they don't teach you in school.
Yes.
So Reagan did this executive order that basically gave the CIA any other intelligence agencies, or was it pretty vague?
From what I could tell, it was basically aimed at the CIA, giving them powers back that they had been stripped of.
And almost full, like, off the leash, whatever you guys want to do.
It's almost like worse now than it was in 1974.
Right.
So,
and it's an executive order versus before the CIA was kind of maybe going about this on their own.
Well, they were maybe having to be more covert. It's not like we can assume that they stopped what they were doing.
Right.
So the drafters of this executive order 12333 ignored statutory limitations on intelligence gathering activity codified in the NSA, the National Security Act. And I wanted to say that was like 1947, Harry S. Truman. Maybe he did a couple good things before he nuked the fuck out of Asia. This may have been one of them. The president's action, Reagan, thus constitutes a statutory impermissible license for renewed government intrusion. In summation of Executive Order 12333, early 80s roll around and fucking gloves are off again.
Yeah. Just in time for maybe peak media? I mean, basically the start of peak media, if you want to think about it like that. Because by that time, everybody's probably got a TV in their household. everybody has access to watch the news every night.
It probably was, yeah, the early 80s, where it wasn't just like the rich family on the street that had the boob tube.
Yeah.
And, VCRs and stuff were coming around. And do you remember seeing and hearing that when the media was really doing its job in the late 60s, they brought the Vietnam War into every American's living room who had a television.
Right, and radio too.
Radio too, but imagine seeing the napalm dropping
for sure.
and the images.
For it seems now more certain than ever that the bloody experience of Vietnam is to end in a stalemate. But it is increasingly clear to this reporter that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate, not as victors, but as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could.
What always sticks out in my mind is that little girl that's naked and just standing in the middle of the street, and she's just fucking scorched. So we hadn't had that. Step forward to the early 90s and even up into the early 2000s with H.W.'s son, George W. Bush, they actually made it illegal to show even coffins of dead American soldiers returning home. So you hold that up to what was going on in the late 60s, and you kind of can just see the good job they did of grabbing the reins of this information outlet that was at one point doing its job.
Right now, in this day and age, we get pissed off when we think about the censorship that happens on these tech platforms, but that happened in TV as well, where you used to be able to see the real journalism and like the real shit that was going on, and it slowly became sensitized. And, we don't want to show that to the American people. We don't want to scare people, don't want to freak them out. But what does that do? That makes it so people don't take action and don't talk to their neighbors about this because they don't get riled up and upset about it. It's no wonder that we don't have a movement like we did with the Vietnam War, where there's protests in the street because nobody's seen the bad shit that's going on.
We're going to protest in the streets on behalf of the machine at this point. If you look at current movements, you have BLM painted on the NBA basketball floors where there's nobody in the stands. I mean, you have people thinking that these progressive liberal movements that used to be edgy are now embraced commercially, and it's leading to an almost Marxist type agenda, which that's definitely we're gonna be going there, towards that. The Smith-Mundt Act. It was an act introduced by Congressman Carl E. Mundt in January of 1945, subsequently passed by the 80th Congress and signed into law by Harry S. Truman, January 27th, 1948. The act was developed to regulate broadcasting of programs for foreign audiences, produced under the guidance by the State Department, and it prohibited domestic dissemination of materials produced by such programs as one of its provisions. So right here, the government is flat out passing a law that says we're going to propagandize foreign citizens and foreign nations. But don't you worry, it's going to stop right there.
It sounds like frickin' North Korea.
It does a little bit, because North Korea does this thing that we're doing to other countries to their own people.
Yeah.
It's amazing the history of this bill, because it's been amended so many times that,
of course.
Basically, we'll go through the steps and what I think is important. You get the gist of what this thing was for. Okay, so here I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times it's been amended.
What years?
56, 72, 73, 79, 85, 91, 92, 94, with my biological father, Bill Clinton.
Since the early 1980s, the number of media companies controlling the bulk of U.S. media has shrunk from 50 to just 5. To make a long story short, it all boils down to the passing of the 1996 Telecommunications Act. This piece of legislation was supposedly intended to deregulate the increasingly tangled broadcast and telecommunications markets, allowing anyone to enter and compete in the industry. Whatever the intended result was, the actual outcome was simply the rapid consolidation of power in the hands of fewer and fewer massive corporations, and it only got worse. The decade before the Telecommunications Act, 50 companies controlled the majority of the media landscape. By 1992, that number had fallen by 50%. And after the passage of the new TV and broadcast legislation, the number quickly shrank even further, to just 6 in the year 2000. And that's roughly where it stayed to this day.
I want to give you an example of what type of propaganda came out of the need and the want to propagandize foreign countries and citizens. The Voice of America, have you heard of this? It's VOA. We'll just call it the VOA. It is the largest and oldest U.S.-funded international broadcaster. It produces digital, TV, and radio content in 47 languages, which it attributes to affiliate stations around the globe. It is primarily viewed by foreign audiences. So VOA programming has an influence on public opinion abroad regarding the United States and its people. So
basically, it highlights the great American life that we have here.
Yeah, probably just like puts on HGN and MTV and just says, this is a documentary about America. Who the fuck knows what they're doing?
Yeah, I'd be curious to watch that. What's also interesting is looking at that logo of Voices of America. It reminds me of some V stagnography, which is a whole nother episode.
Holy shit, I didn't even pay attention to that.
It's very interesting how that is disseminated there. I mean, you could probably analyze their logo and everything they've got going on there.
Just from like scrolling through there, it looks like there's a whole episode in there.
Oh, yeah.
They had it broken down by World War II, Cold War. So they've probably played a pretty heavy role in disseminating fucking bullshit propaganda to certain countries where we have an incentive
to paint us as the good guys and
paint us as the good guys, even maybe instill fear.
Oh yeah.
We're going to get into some pushback from, at least slightly prominent voices. First, we're going to go to a man named William Schaap, a radical lawyer and director of Institute for Media Analysis. And I would say during a testimony to Congress, he delivered a pretty good wrap-up of what was going on here. About a third of the whole CIA budget went to, and their budget, we're talking about huge. Those fucking amounts of money that we can't even fathom. Imagine the budget they have. And about a third of the CIA budget went to media propaganda operations. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars a year just for that. Close to $1 billion are being spent every year by the United States on secret propaganda. In 1948, the United States began the Marshall Plan, an initiative to help the devastated Europe recover from the war. The CIA decided to siphon funds to create the Office of Policy Coordination, which would become the covert action branch of the agency. It was under this program that Operation Mockingbird, a domestic propaganda campaign aimed at promoting the views of the CIA within the media. From the onset, Mockingbird was one of the most sensitive of the CIA's operations, with recruitment of journalists and training of intelligence officers for propaganda purposes, usually undertaken by director Alan Dulles. We'll have a whole episode on the Dulles brothers. Himself or his direct peers. It is a false belief that the CIA infiltrated unwitting media institutions. The recruitment of journalists was frequently done with complicity from top management and ownership. Former CIA Director William Colby claimed during the Church Committee investigative hearings, "Let's go to the managements. They were witting." He just flat out says it, We didn't recruit them. They wanted
to be
with us. They wanted it.
Who wouldn't want to be in bed with the CIA?
I mean, it's better than being out of bed with them.
Yeah, I mean...
Sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah.
Among the organizations that would lend their help to the propaganda efforts was the New York Times, Newsweek, Associated Press, and the Miami Herald. Providing cover to the CIA agents was part of the New York Times policy set by their late publisher, Arthur Hayes Salzberger. The investigative committee to Frank Church, officially titled Select Committee, we already talked about that, uncovered a lot of evidence that Operation Mockingbird had come to the conclusion that the CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world. That was William Schaap, and we're going to move forward to a investigative journalist unless you had anything to say.
So with William Schaap, did he take this to who did he take this to?
Well, the quotes that we were just reading from him was given during a testimony to Congress.
Okay.
And
in what year?
It would have had to have been post church committee.
Right.
Since he
maybe the
references
80s.
it. So we're talking
80s or 90s.
We'll just flash it up on the screen when you ask.
Okay.
So it just looks like I'm teleporting the answer to teleporting.
I know what you mean.
Who the fuck? What's the book you're reading right now? All right.
ESP.
Some other notable critique, aside from Schaap, came from a journalist, investigative journalist by the name of Carl Bernstein. He's most notably known for his coverage of Watergate. He wrote the following in a 1977 Rolling Stone article. Joseph Alsop is one of more than 400 American journalists who in the past 25 years have secretly carried out assignments for the CIA, according to documents on file at the CIA headquarters. Some of these journalists' relationships with the agencies were tacit, some were explicit. There was cooperation, accommodation, and overlap. Journalists provided a full range of clandestine services, from simple intelligence gathering to serving as go-betweens with spies in communist countries. Yeah. Reporters shared their notebooks with the CIA. Editors shared their staffs. This guy's making some claims that go way beyond what we've just been looking at. Some of the journalists were Pulitzer Prize winners, distinguished reporters who considered themselves ambassadors without portfolio for their country. Most were less exalted. Foreign correspondents who found that their association with the agency helped their work. Stringers and freelancers, we talked about this, who were as interested in the daring do of the spy business as in filing articles. And the smallest category, full-time CIA employees masquerading as journalists abroad. And there's probably some stories we could get into there. In many instances, CIA documents show journalists were engaged to perform tasks for the CIA with the consent of management of America's leading news organizations. While a majority of Mockingbird operations were overseas, the goal was to have important, hard-hitting stories to be circulated in the American press. Relationships with major U.S. media institutions certainly helped with this goal. Bernstein lists the New York Times, CBS. New York Times is in every single one of these lists that these guys have. CBS and Time Inc. as the most productive relationships the agency has cultivated. They also created front organizations overseas who publicly maintained an appearance of free press but privately were operated by the agency. An example of this is the Rome Daily American, which was 40% owned by the CIA for 3 decades.
Wow.
So this guy, I wasn't familiar with his work before stumbling upon this little article he wrote concerning the CIA and Operation Mockingbird, but I think I'm going to have to look into him a little bit more. Watergate's one of those things that it is what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't really interest me as much as some of these other things. I think it was one of those
fireworks shows
like red
almost.
herring. Yeah, they just kind of threw it at us like, hey,
look at this.
Don't look over there.
Yeah.
There's a guy. He's got to get out of there. So we'll go to a couple years after this Rolling Stone article was written. Unless you have any input on that.
Do you have the year of that Rolling Stone article?
77.
77.
Yeah.
So it was just after
the committee. He probably had full access. It sounds like if he was covering Watergate, he must have been one of those guys that had the press pass.
Yeah.
So, if I'm to believe a journalist, it would be somebody like him. And
yeah.
I don't know what his integrity level is. Like I said, he's kind of fresh to me.
And something that my mind kind of goes to as you were reading his quotes was, I think about just because these were more foreign intelligence, or more foreign journalists or more foreign news organizations. You think about, where does the domestic, our home base journalist get their information from for foreign affairs?
Funneled from the CIA through the foreign media outlets to the domestic.
Yeah.
Possibly. Following Bernstein's 77 article, a reporter by the name of Deborah Davis wrote a full biography of Katharine Graham, owner of the Washington Post. In this biography, she claims the International Organization of Journalists, and this was an offshoot of like a Soviet thing. I did do a little bit of research into it. Oh, it says it right here. Davis claimed that the International Organization of Journalists was created as a communist front organization and received money from Moscow and controlled reporters on every major newspaper in Europe, disseminating stories that promoted their communist cause. Davis claimed that Frank Wisner, director of the Office of Policy Coordination, and that was a covert operations unit created in 1948 by the United States National Security Council. It had created Operation Mockingbird in response to the international. So yeah, we're getting into it. We always see these like big things that we do. It's because Russia's doing it, and we got to outdo what the fuck ever Russia does. Russia propagandizes, we got to do it. Russia tries to go to the moon, we got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, is Russia our big brother? I mean, we are younger. The Soviet International Organization of Journalists recruiting Phil Graham from the Washington Post to run the project within the industry. According to Davis, by the early 1950s, Wisner owned respected members of the New York Times and fucking again.
I go with the family New York Times.
Every single list that these people delivered, they're at the top.
Of course.
New York Times, Newsweek, CBS, and other communications vehicles. Fill in the blank. I mean, take liberties here, ladies and gentlemen. Any Alphabet, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, Microsoft, and fucking like Microsoft merges with NBC. That sounds legit. Let's shift gears here. I would say that we've presented some pretty solid evidence that the media directly engaged in manipulating, through measures through the state and the CIA. We have been, they kind of just figured out ways to do it. And when they got caught doing it, they kind of just threw word salad at you to say, yeah, but if not this, then this. So we're not. It's over. And I mean, everybody knows the CIA only grows every year.
Yeah.
They're going to stop something like this? I mean, look around. Look at the news these days. And you've seen those videos, right, where it shows
like all the local news,
and it's
the same script.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep.
The company is keeping employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy. The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy. The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
It spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
Amazon says it has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
I can't get enough of it because there's people who on YouTube, there's just so many examples of it. It's not just it happens once or twice. So,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of strange to think about that. All of our local news stations are under the thumb of the major news corporations. There is no small local news. And if they are, and if they appear that way, if you look on their website, you see, oh, they're owned by this big conglomerate.
Who owns KSKQ? Ashland, Oregon. Is that independent?
I don't know.
That's probably why no one listens to it. You mentioned in our intro episode, we got to talking about, we went off on a tangent regarding propaganda and the delivery and the legality of it. And you made the very adept point that it doesn't just have to be through the news media, that you could use fiction and...
Oh, yeah. You could program people to think certain ways before it happens.
And what does Hollywood do?
Right.
So, in the mid-1990s, the CIA named Chase Brandon, an operations officer who was previously assigned to South America, as the liaison to Hollywood. Brandon's film credits include The Recruit, Sum of All Fears, Enemy of the State, Bad Company, and In the Company of Spies. I'm always safely going to assume that Jeremiah hasn't seen a goddamn thing out of that list of movies that I just rattled off.
Nope.
So I'll, for also you out there who aren't a film junkie, and you know, I don't really watch as many movies as I used to, but this is my era. So these are all high budget Hollywood, like blockbuster hits with a plot revolving around the CIA in some way.
Nothing is what it seems.
So this guy, Chase Brandon, he's a credited. I assume his fucking name is in the title or in the credits at the end of these movies. So he's consulted not just with movies, but also with television programs, including The Agency and Alias. The Agency I'm not too familiar with. Alias was Jennifer Garner. She's the CIA badass bitch who's just like, it's back when we could all fall in love with Jennifer Garner, you know? She was just this pristine creature who also could kick the fuck out of a full-grown man without even, you know, batting an eye. There was another one called The Dollhouse where there's this woman who she's just a sleeper cell. They program her to believe she's a certain person, and they insert her into certain situations where they snap her into a assassination mode, and then they wipe her clean and they just keep sending her in there.
Sounds almost like Bourne Identity and all that stuff.
We're going to talk about Bourne Identity here in a minute.
Oh, nice.
Because I always wondered about that movie. Like,
that is a weird...
It makes the CIA look evil.
It does.
So, we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
I know, right?
Okay,
that ESP, man.
He has appeared on this... We're getting back to Chase Brandon. He worked on The Agency and Alias. He's appeared on Discovery, Learning Channel, History Channel, PBS, A&E, and has been interviewed by Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood.
And this was the CIA guy who...
This is the liaison to Hollywood. He was previously posted in South America for some reason. He must have fit the bill for whatever they were wanting to do.
Must have been a top shot guy.
So there, a journalist from The Guardian, John Patterson, criticized the CIA assistance as being only to complementary productions, including not running material such as the original episode of The Agency, that show we listed with Alias. Apparently they showed them in an unfavorable light, and it's the only one that they pulled. So this guy must have came in there and said, hey, I'll help you out, give you all the goods. That pilot episode, for whatever reason, it was unfavorable. It's got to go.
Because we got to make the people believe that the CIA is good.
Yes, it's almost a
and we need it
for cooperation. And a lot of times, I didn't really come across it in researching this episode, but I have seen it in other places that the Hollywood movies, they get free access to military equipment. as long as they play ball.
That makes sense.
I mean, look at the fucking new. You show me the trailer to that Top Gun movie, and it's the real.
Oh, yeah.
So, you think they're going to be delivering a message that doesn't speak highly of our military and intelligence?
Oh, yeah. We should spend billions of dollars on this plane that goes crazy fast and maybe goes into another dimension. Why not?
It's a tic-tac. Tic-tac. Anyway, Guardian journalist John Patterson criticized them for only lending their expertise to the complimentary productions. And this is how they pulled the original episode. It featured, this must have been why it got pulled. It featured the spy masters preventing a plot by bin Laden-backed terrorist cell to blow up a fictionalized Harads. The airing of such an episode might have pointed up the real CIA's corresponding lack of success in foiling the World Trade Center attacks. I mean, that's a leap. Like, because Osama bin Laden's out there after 9/11 and now we're capturing him, it makes them look bad for not having stopped him before, I guess. So, yeah, they don't want any
bad light
at all.
Yeah.
So, according to Brandon, the agency would not endorse spy game. This was is it Ridley Scott or Tony Scott? One of the Scotts. And it's Tony Scott's the Top Gun guy.
Okay.
I think it might have been him. Anyway, they're brothers. So this starred Robert Redford and Brad Pitt. And the final rewrite apparently showed the senior management in an insensitive light. And we just didn't want to be a part of that kind of project, Brandon said. He also withheld approval from 24, that Fox series with Kiefer Sutherland.
I've never watched it.
I've never watched it either. I know the premise, and I don't know enough about it to even confirm what I'm going to read here, that it suggests that not everything's hunky-dory in the company's upper echelons. And The Bourne Identity, based on the 1984 novel by Robert Ludlum, this is from Brandon, so awful that I tossed it in the burn bag after page 25.
Hey, action! Hoch!
So,
yeah, it was like a blockbuster hit.
And it only had 56 sequels.
Yeah.
And a reboot.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that goes to show you. Tell a more compelling truth where the CIA isn't heroic and you're going to sell more tickets. So that Guardian journalist in Patterson, he continues, it used to be the case that if a movie explicitly condemned CIA action, such as Under Fire, I'm not sure what just that one is, the studios could be counted on to bury it. That was no longer true after Costa Gavra's Missing won Jack Lemmon an Oscar in 1982. I haven't seen Missing. And Iran-Contra slimed the CIA in the late 1980s. Okay. Maybe that movie's worth checking out. Since then, CIA Renegade has become a dependable staple, not just of big-budget movies like Enemy of the State, but also of a million straight-to-cable action shock fest starring the likes of Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal. Other films...
Is it starring Chuck Norris, or is Chuck Norris starring the film?
I was like trying to answer you a serious question. The latter, definitely. Other films that the CIA has provided assistance to include the 1992 film version of the Tom Clancy novel Patriot Games and the 2003 movie The Recruit, which we talked about already. According to director Roger Donaldson, when the agency commits to providing their support to a project, that can include letting a photographer shoot stills to help in designing sets, or in certain instances, having the actors spend time in the building. By visiting Langley, the director says, he came to understand how the space worked and looked. I needed a real sense to know how a new person would feel when they saw the place for the first time. I mean, this is crazy.
Wow, so they're getting real, inside access.
Tours.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say this would be a good time to just bump it forward to this quote. This is CIA analyst and whistleblower John Kiriakou. This guy, he's got the goods, and I never heard him say this. Here's his quote. I would regularly bump into a parade of Hollywood types, including Harrison Ford and Ben Affleck, and they both played Jack Ryan at different points in their careers, the Tom Clancy CIA protagonist hero. I often wondered why these actors were allowed to walk around in a top secret facility. Because he's going to be playing a CIA guy in the movie? That's the criteria now? Apparently. In early July 2017, journalists Tom Secker and Matthew Alford reported on their astonishing findings from trawling through thousands of new U.S. military intelligence documents obtained under Freedom of Information Act. Wonder how long that took them to get it. 2017. They must have filed in like 2002. So the documents reveal for the first time the vast scale of U.S. government control in Hollywood, including the ability to manipulate scripts or even prevent films too critical of the Pentagon from being made, not to mention influencing some of the most popular film franchises in recent years. Fill in the blank on that,
Marvel?
ladies and gentlemen. This raises new, and we could get into China's influence on.
Right, that's exactly what I was just thinking. Was like, we give China a hard time for editing a Disney movie that comes into China to be different, but yet our government is doing the exact same thing.
Exactly. This raises new questions not only about the way censorship works in the modern entertainment industry, but also about Hollywood's little-known role as propaganda machine for the U.S. national security apparatus. U.S. military intelligence agencies have influenced over 1,800 movies and TV shows. The authors conclude, in all, we are looking at a vast militarized propaganda apparatus operating throughout the screen entertainment industry in the United States. It is not quite an official censor, since decisions on scripts are made voluntarily by producers, just after a little bit of coercion and bribery. But it represents a major and scarcely acknowledged pressure on the kind of narratives and images we see on the big and small screens. In societies, feel free to interrupt whenever you want.
Okay, go ahead.
In societies already eager to use our hard power overseas, the shaping of our popular culture to promote a pro-war mindset must be taken seriously. This is crazy here. This is the CIA's pitch to screenwriters. This is something they wrote.
Oh.
Are you an aspiring filmmaker who wants to produce a spy thriller? Well, you're in luck, because the CIA has a pile of script ideas lying around. Ironic, you say, that an organization known for secrecy is doling out helpful hints to Hollywood? The CIA doesn't think so. Why would they? For them, it's all about image control, and they're just the start of it. The Department of Defense and just about every branch of the military has an entertainment industry liaison similar to the CIA's. If you want to make a war film and need a fleet of F-22s, a crowd of Marines, we talked about this, or a Navy aircraft carrier, just call up the DoD.
Right. Yeah. In this new Top Gun film, they're on a freaking ship.
Yeah, they were on an aircraft carrier in the first one. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it was real too.
Right, and like going on the bases and everything like that,
Did
in
you
the
watch
airfields.
Top Gun?
Oh yeah.
So didn't that make you want to do that?
Be that? Yeah,
it was
looked
a fucking
badass.
military recruitment
100%.
video that was in the form of a hour and a half long 1987 or whatever it was Hollywood movie.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that shit was dude, I still get chills when I hear down, you know, that Kenny Loggins song.
I think so. I mean, I got chills. Just I must have some subconscious thinking there.
It's just in our DNA.
Yeah.
So,
and if you guys haven't watched the new trailer for the new Top Gun movie, you should watch it. And Tom Cruise is really flying it because he's a real person, not manipulated by any. And he's short enough.
He could fit in there. I could sit right next to him. This is even worse than that thing I just read you, because this is actually on their fucking website.
So was that previously like a flyer that somebody spotted
it must
or
have
something?
been something that they were sending out to people in the the Screenwriters Guild or whatever it is, because when you're a working screenwriter in Hollywood, there's a union or a guild, and I'm assuming that it was just like maybe email or something, or maybe a junk mail. I'm not sure, but definitely was trying to recruit up and coming, desperate to work in the industry. I mean, who wouldn't want the next action thriller military intelligence movie to have their name in the title?
Yeah.
Like, this is the part off their website. Our media relations staff's objective is to be as responsive as possible to the media and therefore the American public while protecting classified information and intelligence sources and methods. The agency's entertainment industry liaison is the member of the media team and engages with actors, authors, directors, producers, and screenwriters who are featuring the CIA in their creative ventures in a positive light. The protection of national security equities is, I love that word so much, is always paramount in any engagement with the entertainment industry. Our goal is accurate, balanced portrayal of the men and women of the CIA because we know they're all virtuous and everything they're doing is badass and heroic.
Yeah.
Their vital mission and the commitment to public service that defies them. As an organization that plays a key role in America's defense, the CIA is a frequent subject of books, movies, documentaries, and other creative ventures. For years, artists from across the entertainment industry have been in touch with the CIA. I think this is repetitive. We'll just stop it after that last one.
And who was that quoted by?
This is the CIA website.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm getting close to wrapping it up here, ladies and gentlemen. Now that we've taken a look at Hollywood and modern methods of propaganda, let's shift back to our original critique of the news media. You ready to pull up some video?
Yeah.
I want to make a case that war is a very hard idea to sell the American public, especially I think questions and reservations became quite prominent after World War II. World War I, probably even more so, because World War I was so atrocious and it was kind of not even understood by the average citizen what was going on there. They just knew that everybody was going over there and it was bad and people were dying. So that hesitancy, to me, led to the delay of America's entry into World War II. And I do believe that Pearl Harbor was a 9/11 type event. I think that they have even admitted recently that they used British intelligence to help crack the Japanese code. And they knew that attack was coming. And FDR, I think he was one of the worst presidents we've ever had. I know a lot of people like him.
He has a lot of good branding going on, and he came from Hollywood. How interesting is that?
Did he?
I thought he had some
FDR?
Hollywood. Yeah, I thought he had some Hollywood.
You might be right
connections.
about that. I don't know a lot about his early life. I do know that I hate the motherfucker. And this, what I'm talking about right now, is one of the reasons. That was a Hollywood production. It was the first time where we were like, yeah, we didn't want to go to war, but they got us good. We were just sitting ducks, and the Japanese were kind of let out of options. Not only did he have the fleets in Hawaii just sitting there like fish in a barrel, after having done that, he cut their oil supply off. How fucking dumb do you need to be? Even if you didn't put them there on purpose to be slaughtered, you would kind of figure like, well, pissed off, we just poked the bear. Might as well pull everybody out of there because we know that they can fly that far. So, of course, if you just kind of ask yourself, and then this is going to be an episode where we'll dive into it, but I'm getting way off here. So to convince people to get into World War II, they had to see that. And then Vietnam happened, and that was just a rocky-ass fucking beginning to get into that war. It took Jim Morrison's dad engaging in the Gulf of Tonkin incident, where they sat there and tried to get the Vietnamese to shoot at us, and they wouldn't. And then so they fucking fabricated it and made it look like it happened. That kind of got us into the Vietnam War. I mean, it really furthered the push for it. After the atrocity of Vietnam, yeah, we were really hesitant again. And if you think of it, there wasn't really a lot of like huge wars between then and the first Gulf War with George H.W. Bush, where there was what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little fighting, there's a little spat.
Yeah.
There's something going on between Iraq and Kuwait. We all know, any of us scholarly individuals or people who have just looked outside of American history books, that war was all about oil. But there was a dispute. That's what I wanted. There was a dispute between Kuwait and Iraq. And that was why we went in there. That's the idea we had to sell to the public. I want you to pull up this first video.
Okay. Do you want to give any introduction to it or just go for it?
I want the video to be the introduction to what I'm about to tell you.
Very much. Our final witness is also using an assumed name, and again we ask our friends in the media to respect the need for her to protect her family, and we finally call on Naira to testify.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Naira, and I just came out of Kuwait. My mother and I were in Kuwait on August 2nd for a peaceful summer holiday. My older sister had a baby on July 29th, and we wanted to spend some time in Kuwait with her. I only pray that none of my 10th grade classmates had a summer vacation like I did. I may have wished sometime that I could be an adult, that I could grow up quickly. What I saw happen to the children of Kuwait and to my country has changed my life forever. It has changed the life of all Kuwaitis, young and old. We are children no more. My sister, with my 5-day-old nephew, traveled across the desert to safety. There was no milk available for the baby in Kuwait. They barely escaped when their car was stuck in the desert sand, and help came from Saudi Arabia. I stayed behind and wanted to do something for my country. The second week after an invasion, I volunteered at the Al-Adan hospital with 12 other women who wanted to help as well. I was the youngest volunteer. The other women were from 20 to 30 years old. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying. I could not help but think of my nephew, who, if born premature, might have died that day as well. After I left the hospital, some of my friends and I distributed flyers condemning the Iraqi invasion until we were warned we might be killed if the Iraqis saw us. The Iraqis have destroyed everything in Kuwait. They stripped the supermarkets of food, the pharmacies of medicine, the factories of medical supplies, ransacked our houses, and tortured neighbors and friends. I saw and talked to a friend of mine after his torture and released by the Iraqis. He is 22, but he looked as though he could have been an old man. The Iraqis dunked his head into a swimming pool until he almost drowned. They pulled out his fingernails and applied electric shock to sensitive private parts of his body. He was lucky to survive. If an Iraqi soldier was found dead in a neighborhood, they burned to the ground all the houses in the general vicinity and would not let firefighters come until only ash and rubble was left. The Iraqis were making fun of President Bush and verbally and physically abusing my family and me on our way out of Kuwait. We only did so because life in Kuwait became unbearable. They have forced us to hide, burn, or destroy everything identifying our country and our government. I want to emphasize that Kuwait is our mother and the Emir our father. We repeated this on the roofs of our houses in Kuwait until the Iraqis began shooting at us. And we shall repeat it again. I am glad I am 15, old enough to remember Kuwait before Saddam Hussein destroyed it, and young enough to rebuild it. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you. And let me thank all of our witnesses.
You can cut it.
We've passed 8 years in the existence of the Congressional Human Rights Caucus.
So what's your initial reaction to that?
I was a little confused by her accent or lack thereof.
Well, it kind of comes in and goes.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's really strong.
I was curious about the white person that she was sitting next to. Some white blonde chick.
Probably
and
her
like,
handler.
How does somebody like that get in front of Congress to testify?
Yeah, all we have is a first name.
Yeah.
She needs to be protected. You're pretty tough, man. Had I seen that video, not knowing what I know, I probably would have been crying.
Well, I had a feeling we were getting a set up here. I mean, it certainly pull on your heartstrings.
She's good.
Yeah.
I would not have questioned her. The accent thing, I didn't notice until about the 5th, 6th time I watched this.
Yeah.
It's funny you got it right off. This was C-SPAN, I believe. Isn't that what it said?
Yep.
This was recorded before a committee. And at the time, the American people were not wanting to buy any bullshit. And they'd been trying. Bill Hicks has a joke where he's talking about how George H.W. Bush was like, do you like kitties? Yeah, I like kitties. Well, Saddam Hussein hates kitties. He fucks them and he eats them. I mean, this is what George H.W. Bush was doing. He was really trying to sell this. This aggression cannot stand. This is one thing he liked to say. The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
It shows that at the very beginning of the movie, and then later on, this aggression will not stand, man. I don't remember why he's saying it, but he quotes H.W. So, 3 months passed between Nadia's testimony and the start of the invasion, the American invasion of Iraq. During those months, the stories of babies torn from their incubators was repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the whole pro-life. You know, it's a very...
They get their one thing and like a poster child.
Yeah.
President Bush told the story. It was recited as fact in congressional testimony on TV and radio talk shows and at the UN Security Council, which is back then, we gave a fuck what they thought when we wanted to go to war. Now we're just like, UN schmooin. Who the fuck cares what they say? HW's son kind of was like, just go send Colin Powell over there to fucking, lie and throw that son of a bitch under the bus. He probably could have became the first black president we ever had if that didn't happen. Little tangent there. Of all the accusations made against the dictator, none had more impact on American public opinion than the one about Iraqi soldiers removing 312 babies. They even have a number on it. Gematria.
I know. I'm thinking there needs to be a whole decode here.
Why 312? That's a very odd number.
Yeah.
It's an even number, but it's just a strange, so precise.
Yeah.
Not 300. 312. It sounds more believable, I guess.
312 has the numerology of 6. Because if you add up 3 and 3, 1, 2.
The massacre never occurred. The girl was actually the daughter of a Kuwaiti emir and the ambassador to the U.S. and had been coached by the public relations firm Hill and Knowlton. This is a PR firm that actually is working with the COVID propaganda right now. They've got a pretty clean record if you look at this story. Is that a fucking ice cream truck? I have never heard that before.
Maybe it's Hill and what's that?
Okay. Hit the deck. We got to do a deep dive into Hill and Knowlton because after I heard that they were heading the propaganda for COVID in the early days. I was like, wow, Hill and Knowlton, why do I know that? You know what this is? This is an ice cream, dude. This is vaccination squads. They're going door to door now. Come on, man. Okay.
So where was this source from? Who disclosed this?
Okay, so it was debunked after we'd already gone to war.
Of course.
So it was initially...
We can let out the truth now. It's fine.
We're already fucking shit up over there. It's okay to tell them it was I believe it wasn't even an American journalist that first blew the lid off of this bullshit.
Babies pulled from incubators and scattered like firewood across the floor.
There was plenty of evidence of Iraqi brutality, but the incubator story became almost a rallying cry. It had presidential confirmation and the confirmation of Amnesty International, which published a report after Naira testified, quoting her and claiming 312 babies were killed when Iraqi troops pulled them from their incubators. Then, a rather embarrassed Amnesty retracted its report. In London, spokesman Sean Stiles said, as hard as they tried, they could not confirm it.
It became quite clear to us that credible medical opinion was that this didn't happen.
And it wasn't just Amnesty International. The story did not hold up under repeated scrutiny by reporters and human rights investigators, including Andrew Whitley, executive director of the human rights group Middle East Watch.
Did Iraqi soldiers remove babies from incubators in order to steal the incubators?
No, they did not. Not at all.
When she testified, her father was sitting close by. He's Sheikh Saud Nasir al-Sabah, Kuwait's ambassador to the United States. Naira lives with her family in Washington, D.C. Her true identity was not revealed until John R. MacArthur, the publisher of Harper's Magazine, got suspicious.
So I set out to try to find out, like any reporter does, and I started asking questions, and I finally heard a rumor that Naira was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador. So I used an old reporter's trick. I called up the embassy and I said, Naira did a terrific job at the Human Rights Caucus, and I think her father must be very proud of her. And doesn't she deserve her place in history? And the ambassador's secretary said to me, you're not supposed to know that. No one's supposed to know she's the ambassador's daughter.
They make this guy's daughter. They coach her. And they make her appeal to the American people. These guys are animals. They're ripping babies out of incubators. This was co-opted by... I don't know. I mean, did the government know this was going on? Who's fucking pulling the strings here? But there was some deep shit, and they fucking pulled one over on the American public. It's probably the sole reason we ended up going over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's just one little thing to think about. I think we could probably move to the next one.
Okay.
Unless you have more to say about it.
No, that's very interesting. My only question is what does this girl's name equal in Gematria?
26.
I'm wondering if it's...
What's the number for war?
That's a good question.
I just fucking had to laugh at that part because she's like, if an Iraqi soldier is found dead, they burn the entire village down. Also, they make fun of George Bush. It's just like equating those two things.
Yeah.
I think it's fucking worse.
How do you spell propaganda?
Okay, I guess I could give a little intro to this one.
Yeah. So this is during the Gulf War, what was this, 90s?
This is, yeah, so this is after Naria helped us fucking go over there. This is the kind of shit that we were getting. And there's a lot of people who have tried to debunk that this is a fake video. And I'm not even going to say what I think. I just want to show it, and then
we'll discuss it.
I think we can see.
CD, if you need to take cover, I notice that you've got your gas mask in your hands. If you need to put it on, please do so. If you need to take cover, please do so. If you are able to take a question, did you think that the possible threat would be over because it is now morning there? It's what, just after 6 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, the whole thing is everyone assumed that the threat would be over because it was early morning, but the thing about Saddam Hussein is that he has never
likes
done
to have his coffee
the expected,
first.
and right now we have, once again been surprised with the unexpected, an air raid, an apparent attack, although we can't say what the outgoing missiles hit, at approximately 20 after 7 in the morning Saudi Arabian time. The crowd, I'd say...
My apologies for that. He's putting on a gas mask. There hasn't been any gas dropped here that we could tell.
You smell anything?
No. You may smell some of the fumes from a missile exhaust going off. The missiles use a rocket, a cordite, some sort of burning. We just heard a little thump just then. But
I have to apologize for that. I caught a whiff of something and felt momentarily dizzy. You're more experienced in military.
Already?
There's like a whole
The top
gaff
10
reel of
things about
this
Saudi
guy.
Arabia. Maybe we could shorten the list to 5. Oh God, Geopolitics by Dan Quayle. Je suis un journaliste américain.
What?
Woof. Woof.
It doesn't look like he's afraid of gas now.
Oh, I love this country so much.
You guys just don't have a clue.
Well, Cheryl, it was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. It was almost exactly 2 hours ago when the sirens went off here in Saudi Arabia. Where we are in eastern Saudi Arabia, there was no problem. However, there was an intercept elsewhere near the capital city, Riyadh. We've got some videotape of that you can take a look at right now. Hi, Atlanta. We're about to have a short course in missile identification. This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you.
Graffiti on it? Yeah, show me graffiti.
Larry King show or bust. Look at this.
Look
at this. Look at this shit. Look at
Believe that.
Looks like they're just having a good time.
Doesn't it seem a little satirical?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean the gas mask, and then the other guy just got his helmet on.
And he's like, "You smell anything?" And then he just takes it off. By take 3, he's just fucking goofing around and getting all goofy.
So it kind of makes me think, okay, so that clearly wasn't live. They pretended that it was live.
I think it was in-house studio.
Well, it almost looked like they were like outside of just a building.
Well, it's so... When you look at the people trying to debunk the claim that this is a enacted thing, it's not a real news report from location. A lot of the people said the blue in the background, but there's supposedly in Saudi Arabia a notable hotel that has that blue wall. Either way, I don't give a fuck where he is. The guy's not scared. He's clearly acting.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. You out there watch it on your own, come up with your own conclusion, but I'm not buying it.
It's a little fishy.
He seems like a 1978 fucking stud in a porno movie where they weren't.
Kind of reminds me of
shaving their bush
Anchorman.
yet. Yes, exactly. Ron Burgundy.
Yeah.
It's kind of. I wonder, did Will Ferrell maybe have just like take a bunch of that era reporters and just kind of like mesh them up?
Make his own character.
When he wasn't drinking baby blood.
Yeah.
With Lady Gaga and Marina Abramovich. One more video to go.
One more? I thought there was 2 more.
Is there?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, Project Veritas. That's the next fun one, huh?
But first, I want to give this one a little bit of an intro.
All right.
This is the most modern one out of the 4 examples I've got. And this is, I talked about how they've kind of just dissolved. At first, they kind of had to lie about the CIA being connected to the corporate media. Now, the ex-director of the CIA, John Brennan, he's just a regular correspondent on MSNBC. I'm going to give CNN plenty of shit, but MSNBC to me is the worst of them. And I mean, just their shady history financed by Microsoft. It's just right from the get-go. Although they are the ones that reported first, way before Bill and Melinda Gates' divorce was made public, they were saying, "Hey, what is this Epstein tie with Bill Gates?" It's like, wow, you must have pissed off people there, and is that hard to believe? But they aren't affiliated anymore. In the beginning of the network they were. Anyway, John Brennan, ex-CIA guy, regular correspondent on MSNBC. After the insurrection storming, worst day since 9/11, January 6th, he went on MSNBC and said the following. And I couldn't find it. I remember when it happened. It's one of the reasons I sat out there so long.
Trying to find
this was the video I couldn't find, and finally I found Fox reporting on the clip. This is so offensive that I don't think that they left it up on their own.
Oh wow!
So
well, I'm eager to listen to
I
this.
mean, how many times have you voted Libertarian?
Well, I'm a registered Libertarian.
All right, well,
or am I an independent?
Get the fuck out of my house.
Independent. I voted for Libertarians twice.
I'm a registered Libertarian. I'm also offended.
As I mentioned, at the top of the hour of this domestic terror bill are pointing to this recent comment from former CIA Director John Brennan and the way he grouped libertarians in with extremists. Watch this.
Looking forward, that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of a country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians.
That's it.
That's it.
I'd be curious what he continued saying after that. But I mean, he was just kind of trying to throw everybody in the bus there.
Yeah, he starts with, this is how we see these terrorist cells overseas start to pop up on different parts of the country, and then he goes from that to bigots, nativists. What the fuck does that even mean?
Nativist. I'd never heard that term used before.
I am in favor of Native American rights.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes me a nativist. Did he mean nationalist?
It's a good question.
And maybe it's an interchangeable term, because I think that's more what he was leaning towards. But anyway, and then he wraps it up with a nice little bow and throws libertarians in with everybody.
Of course.
That, to me, it was just an example of who's MSNBC going to for their talking points. They're going to the ex-director of the CIA, who also fucking was an advisor to Obama. The same guy. And
propaganda king.
They just totally don't even try to hide it anymore. We're all in bed together. NPR, a couple mornings ago, they I don't even remember the current director's name, but they interviewed him, and it was just like they're fluffing his fucking testes. It was just like, we're coming to you for the truth on these matters. And they talked about that Havana syndrome. Have you heard of that? Where it's all these CIA operatives and their family members started in Cuba. We're fucking pulling back the soul trope, and they get severe ringing in the ears.
Oh, I remember hearing about
some
this.
Neurological damage. Some people are hospitalized by it. The reporter just kind of nonchalantly at the end of the interview throws out, well, it's all of us out there are thinking, could Russia have something to do with this?
Oh my God.
And I asked him the question, and he said, maybe. All right. Back to you, A. Martinez. Like, I was watering my garden listening to this, just fucking going, we live in the Matrix.
Anything to blame Russia, right?
Oh, dude, Vladimir Putin jacks off watching that kind of stuff on the news. You know that, right?
I mean, it just makes him seem more powerful.
The space that he occupies in the collective American imagination is just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like Bond villain proportions with how we've propped this guy up.
You're just making him fear him more, which is just what he wants.
Yeah. All right. We'll wrap this up with one more. And I think that every conspiracy theorist out there is going to love it. And if you haven't seen it yet or listened to it.
RT is funded in whole or in part by the Russian government.
That is that's what it says?
That's what this little YouTube help here thing says right here. RT America.
Is this being Can this be seen what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
God
they can see
damn.
this whole thing.
I didn't pay attention to that.
Wow. Isn't that interesting, huh? So RT America, what is this, like Russia Times America or something?
No, this
What's
is
RT?
RT. This is
Okay.
where Abby Martin, I think Lee Camp has his fucking show on there, Redacted Tonight, but they don't get any influence, and that's why these progressive liberals, and these are people I actually enjoy.
I just hope for a peaceful outcome with no more military aggression. I hope the military aggression is scaled back, and I hope we can see a peaceful outcome. But I think that the real question that should be asked is, why do I have to work for RT to tell the truth about corporations and the U.S. government? I mean, seriously, you guys are beholden to advertisers that you cannot criticize, and that's why I work for a station that I can criticize.
Hang on
Sure.
a sec. I'm free to say what the hell I like.
Sure.
No one's ever told me.
Abby Martin, she's a little overzealous on certain topics for my taste, but she does some goddamn good reporting, like in Israel. She goes over there and she's trying to show what's going on, and I mean, I do respect her. Lee Camp, he's a huge socialist, but he's attacking the Democrats from the left, and I just can't get enough of that. I think that's the way to do it. And I mean, Jimmy Dore, people like that, true journalists, Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, they're all out there sticking out their neck, attacking. As a progressive, they're attacking the Democrats from the left, and they get taken down by the establishment. I mean, Glenn Greenwald, another great example. Anyway, we're going to cap this episode off, and I don't even think you and I need to comment on this after it's done. I think we're just going to play this and roll out. Have you seen this?
No.
And now to the explosive video concerning convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The footage shows ABC News anchor Amy Robach talking about how she had a major story on Epstein for 3 years, but wasn't able to run the story. RT's Trinity Chavez has more.
We are outside of Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan mansion, just one of the places where he was accused of sexually abusing underage girls. But we are learning from an investigation done by Project Veritas that this could have potentially been exposed years ago. But network executives refused to air an interview that one news anchor conducted.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air.
The clip, filmed earlier this year, was allegedly captured by an ABC News insider and released on Tuesday by the investigative news outlet and activist group Project Veritas.
It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything.
The video caught Amy Robach speaking to a producer on a hot mic off air, talking about how they had one of Epstein's alleged victims, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, ready to come forward, but executives squashed the story.
First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story.
Robach went on to express how she felt about how Epstein died while he was in jail.
Do I think he was killed? 100%. Yes, I do. Because he made his whole living blackmailing people. There were a lot of men in those planes, a lot of men who visited that island, a lot of powerful men who came into that apartment.
Meantime, in a statement Tuesday, Robach said the network never intentionally killed an Epstein piece and called the recordings a private moment of frustration. She said in the statement, "I was upset that an important interview I had conducted with Virginia Roberts didn't air because we could not obtain sufficient corroborating evidence to meet ABC's editorial standards about her allegations. My comments about Prince Andrew and her allegation that she had seen Bill Clinton on Epstein's private island were in reference to what Virginia Roberts said in that interview in 2015. I was referencing her allegations, not what ABC News had verified through our reporting." The network issued a similar statement which read, "At the time, not all of our reporting met our standards to air, but we have never stopped investigating the story. Ever since, we've had a team on this investigation and substantial resources dedicated to it. That work has led to a 2-hour documentary and 6-part podcast that will air in the new year."
Now, Project Veritas says that it intends to continue to investigate how media outlets.
So we're going to wrap it up there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hanging out and playing with us. This has been our deep dive into Mockingbird Media. Stay safe out there. Peace.